Hey, we're going to start back a little bit earlier since I think everybody's had a chance to get a snack and we were running ahead of schedule just a little bit. Next item up on our agenda are our presentation of budget requests from the fire districts, and I think the first one up is Alan. I'll turn it over to Steve Langer.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We have several fire departments this afternoon requesting a tax increase on their fire tax district. First, we have Allen Fire Department. Allen is requesting a 1.5 cent increase, bringing their tax rate to 6 cents, generating an additional $69,000 from the tax rate. We have with us this afternoon Board President Mike Faggart and Chief Jimmy Morgan. We'll turn it over to them for their presentation and justification.
I'm assuming that everybody got a copy of our letter we wrote. I apologize for any typos. Typing's never been my strong suit. We asked for a penny and a half to raise our current tax rate up to 6 cents, and with that money, as my letter stated, the priority is safety of the men. As you can tell, we were going to make some improvements to our station and to some of our PPE, and then follow it with some additional staffing with hopes of lowering our ISO rating and response times.
And what is your current ISO rating?
We're a 5-9 split.
Commissioners, do you have questions regarding this request? And please, I apologize, I'm looking at this for the first time.
So do you have any projections on what you think you could lower the rate to and what time frame?
Well, for residential 5, you don't see any savings past 5. We don't have a lot of commercial. As a matter of fact, I don't think we have any commercial anymore. We have schools and churches. But so 5, where hydrants are fine. The areas that are not hydranted are in a 9, and that's the area we would like to focus on. Now, it won't be as quick as tomorrow, but it's going to take some time building some water points and getting some water to areas where there's no water.
Okay, when you say getting water to areas where there is no water, does that mean you're going to try to identify some ponds that you would be able to access, or what does that really mean?
We'll identify ponds, and part of the ISO rating for the state of North Carolina is a water shuttle operations, and that is a municipal part where we use tankers from surrounding departments as well as our department, and we identify the closest hydrants, see which trucks will actually release the water fastest, fill up the fastest, so we can cut those times down, and that's how we're graded by the state. There will be some ponds, but that's based on weather and homeowners, whether they'll let us use them for fires and such like that.
And who's going to determine from your equipment that you have, and who's going to are you doing that study, or are we helping out with finding out which equipment he said fills up faster, and
we'll do
who
that
the neighboring
in-house.
people, how are you going to do that?
We do that now through training, mutual aid training, night training, and when we get closer to the process. Odell Fire Department's been through it. Of course, they're on the opposite side of the county from where we are, so it doesn't help us a whole lot. But like I said, we're in the process of working it, and it'll just be a group effort, and put the time and effort into it and find the volunteers to help us.
So, do you have or will you be creating a plan that shows the steps that you're going to take to address that, so that you'll know that, I would call it a matrix if it were me, or a rubric? How are you going to know a year from now what you accomplished and what your goals are? What are your steps that you have to take in order to make that happen? Because what I would be interested in is the tax rate goes up, then I would, for the areas you mentioned, if their insurance rate or cost goes down, then they have a saving. That they would have hopefully an overall saving. So
Yes, ma'am.
that would be because a lot of times in the whatever this is 7th budget, I guess, for me, one of the things that volunteer fire departments talk about is that rating system and getting it so that the property owners pay less in their insurance. And so if you tell us that you're going to do that, and that's why you need additional funds, will you be able to, I don't know, in the next month or two, come back and say, this is what our plan is. This is how we're going to, if you're doing it yourself, does that make sense? What is your plan?
I understand what you're saying.
If you hired somebody, they'd come in and tell you, this is how you need to do it. Or I guess if you could do it, you could say, well, this is what we want you to do over the next 6 months, 9 months, and so we're going to know that a year from now, you're actually making headway on this process.
Well, we've already started in the process. We've got the required DVDs and stuff, and I've had most of my officers looking at them, saying this is where we need to do, this is what we need to find. The first step in that process is the biggest part of it, is we're flowing all our fire hydrants in our area now and getting good flow so we can see which ones flow more. So we'll have to do that this year, and then we'll start working with the tankers probably in the fall of the year, because you can't find volunteers when it's hot outside or beach weather. But we'll work in the fall of the year, start working with our neighboring departments, getting that time. I mean, we don't have anything on paper, but I would venture to say it's probably not a 12-month turnaround. It's more of an 18 to 24-month turnaround.
So I would be interested in you as the experts with your board of directors having that. You're the expert, not me.
Using that loosely, I hope. Okay.
You're a whole lot better than I am. I know that much. But I would be interested with you and your board of directors
Okay.
to have that conversation and to say, it's going to take us 24 months, it's going to take us 18, and this is the milestones, if you will, in that process.
Okay.
So that, and then when you have your annual meeting and folks in the community want to know why their fire tax rate went up, you can say, well, this is our plan, and this is what we think the benefit's going to be, and this is how we're going to know that it's the benefit. I'm sure you've had those conversations.
Oh, yes.
But I think it would be good to document a plan that you're,
Okay.
and how you're going to go through.
Yes, ma'am.
So that you
I'll work with Steve.
can sell it to the people who live in your fire district
Okay.
as much as you would sell it to the 5 of us.
And we'll go out and help with the department, and we've offered that help to all the departments to come out and work through the process and evaluate the information that's needed for ISO ratings. So we'll help them with that process and developing that plan.
And then, I'm like Steve, I was trying to read this while you were talking. The equipment that you that you would want to buy, new equipment, air masks, and what else would what else do you need to pay for?
Well, the air, we actually have some air masks. We would add additional air masks for each one of our personnel with an air purifying respirator, so they could use it on medical calls when because let's face it, 90% of what we do is medical calls, and there's lots of airborne stuff out there. And right now, we're using the little paper duckbill mask, if you would. That's going to provide a level of protection for them. And we won't have to, the fit test, I won't have to worry if they do it right. They'll put it on every time. I won't have to worry about a defect. You know, those things are tested annually when we fit test. So we have 16 now. We have roughly 25 volunteers, so we would need to add 10 to 12 more to equip everybody. And then the other part of that was the vent system for the fire station. The current one we have is homemade. It's served us well, but now when the door opens and it cuts on, we have breakers trip and stuff like that, and it's not getting the bad stuff out like we need it to. And unfortunately, the cost of those systems are just outrageous.
So would that need electrical upgrades too, if you're?
No, when we talked to the company that does it out of Greensboro, they said that what we have would work. They would just have to come in and retrofit tracks in our stations and stuff for hose. Right now, we have, like I said, a manual release.
And this says the rising cost of tires.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. A fire truck tire now, I would say $4,000, what do you think? How close, Jason? Help me out. $4,000 a piece per tire?
Might be a little bit less than that.
Okay,
I don't
it's
know
$3,000 to
exactly.
$4,000 a piece with tires. And what we have at Allen is a 5-year rotation on our tires. regardless of mileage, just for safety, every 5 years, that truck gets a new set of tires because, you know, we sold a 1964 truck in 96 that only had 18,000 original miles on it. So we're not putting miles on our vehicles. It's just the age and the dry rotting in the city.
And then the other thing that you mentioned that I'd like for you to talk about is the increased staffing levels. So can you explain that?
Yeah,
What that means and why that's beneficial?
Well, right now we have 2 people, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and 1 person from 9 to 5 on Saturdays and Sundays, and that covers, 8 hours during our day. We're noticing that we're having more calls from that 5 o'clock time to that 7 o'clock, sometimes 8 or 9 o'clock, and kids with ball games and, volunteers, you get what time you can from them. And with everybody's life being busy with something else, it is harder and harder to get people to cover those calls. So with that money, we're planning on putting in a second shift that would overlap the first shift a little bit in the afternoons, and then it would carry on till 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
And is that, so that would be one, well, it wouldn't necessarily be one person.
Yeah, it would
You
be
could
one
have a-
position.
One position.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, one full-time, but you could have somebody that does it 2 evenings a week or
Yes,
somebody that, something like that you would manage it. And so it'll run till 10 o'clock at night.
Yes, 10 or 11. And like I said,
Something like
that fluctuates based on the availability of the part-time person. If the bulk of the guys don't want to come in till 3 and work till 11, then, we can work with that. And if it's 2 to 10, that hour at the end of the shift doesn't really make us or break us. It's the meat in the middle that gets us.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, additional question? Yes, sir.
Jimmy, how many calls does Alan do at this time?
We're between 800 and 900 calls a year, sir.
Is that a combination of accidents?
That is
Anything and everything?
anything that you can think of to call 911 for.
Yeah, okay.
You mentioned a lot of what you do are not necessarily fire calls. So what's your ratio of,
I can tell you that if you want.
do you have that?
Oh, by all means.
You can jump in anytime.
He didn't tell me he had numbers.
Sorry. For fire calls, with every fire department, the majority of their calls are medical related. But fire calls, 17% and 83% EMS, medical calls related.
Do you cover like a certain area? I mean, I know you're located there, so do you cover within a certain area of that, or how does that?
Yes, ma'am.
They have a tax district and a response district, which is the same, and that's what they cover. But every fire department works on mutual aid as well, so they overlap districts assisting each other during calls.
That district is it done by people?
We can get you a map of all.
Okay.
Our district is 19.66 square miles.
Okay.
You running 3 trucks, 2 tankers, or what are you, what?
Currently, in our station, we have 3 engines, 2 rescues, I guess a personnel carrier, if you would, and a brush truck.
Okay. And you mentioned a while ago, Jimmy, that one of your trucks had like 18,000 miles over a period of 5 years. What would you estimate your annual mileage for those vehicles?
Well, now granted, that was back in 96. Our call volume was around 400 calls, so we've doubled our calls. I think we just recently added a new piece of apparatus, and it just turned a year old in March, and it's got 9,000 miles on it. So I guess 10,000 miles would probably be a safe number.
For that one vehicle?
Yeah, average for that
Yeah.
vehicle. It depends on,
Yeah.
not every truck is running every call, so it's, the engine goes out during the day for medical response, so the guys have the water with them in the event that there is a fire. They don't have to go back to the station and get that. And then at night, with the limited staffing of volunteers and stuff like that, we have a F-350 rescue that runs what we call first out to those calls in the evenings.
I'm not sure if you mentioned this or not, but when was the last time there was a increase in the taxes?
We went revenue neutral back. I'm sure you're all familiar with when the property tax went down. We sit in this, I think, very room and went up a half a penny to remain revenue neutral. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the the sales tax stuff that's going on with the state too, and you can see on our sheet up there that the sales tax represents $55,000 of our budget. So if that gets hit, then this increase will basically just help us break even for the next calendar or next fiscal year.
We are hoping that sales tax problem does not occur.
Me and you both, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate you pointing that out, because we've been trying to get the word out that if that happens, that all of the volunteer fire departments would lose funding, and needless to say, you would look to us to make up the funding somehow. So I had failed to bring that out earlier, so I appreciate the fact that you
Yes, ma'am.
did.
Thank you.
I have one other question. How are you doing on recruiting? I mean, are you good? Sometimes different departments have a real hard time getting the young ones to come in and go through the training. So let me, when you answer
sorry.
that, and then also to help educate, what kind of training do volunteers have to go through in order to be a volunteer fireman with you?
To become a certified fireman for the state of North Carolina, that certification is 220 contact hours of classroom and hands-on training. To be an EMT for the state of North Carolina, that's an additional 240 training hours that they would have to, that's contact and hands-on. So for a person that is certified to fight fires and provide first aid, that's 560 hours or 460 hours. And that would be in the first, year of your training. Now, the state only requires 36 hours of continuing ed as a minimum to remain on our state roster. ISO requires 212 hours a year for maximum credit. Now, I don't know where you would find a volunteer that has 212 hours to give me just for training. So that's what was the second part of your question, I guess?
How are you doing on
How we're doing on recruiting.
Are you good? Do you work? Make the calls?
We currently are able to make our calls. You never want to turn away good volunteers. As a matter of fact, I think Mr. Shoe's in our district. If you need an application, I can give you one before we leave. We try not to turn away help anytime we can get it. But then again, we're not an industry that can take just anybody. I say everybody has a place in the firehouse. Unfortunately, that's not true. But we keep between 25 and 30 on our roster, and that fluctuates based on time of year. And a really good thing is the Cabarrus, or the Concord Fire Academy at Concord High School. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. You should be if you know Chief Barlow. We got some of the first graduates from that program at our volunteer fire department, and we still have them today. Matter of fact, one of them serves as a captain in our fire department. So when they go back and Chief Barlow tells the kids in his class, we get a lot of kids, young people that are interested. So.
Very good. Any other questions? We thank you very much for being with us.
Yes,
Back
sir.
on that sales tax issue, as Commissioner Poole pointed out, if the volunteer fire departments were to lose that revenue, then obviously you would come to us to try to make it up. We would lose also in that proposal, which would reduce our ability to honor those requests. So if you have an opportunity to talk with any members of the General Assembly in Raleigh, we would appreciate you sharing that with them.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
Yes, thank you for your time.
I think our next, we have Flo's Store Volunteer Fire Department.
You want to come up? Are you waiting on Ken? Ken Nichols, the board president of Flow Store, is running late. He hoped to be here by now, but he did email me and told me he would probably be a little late. So if we can move on maybe to Gold Hill, East Gold Hill Fire Department. And with us, we have Chad Earnhardt, the fire chief for East Gold Hill, and I'm not sure.
Charles Miller, President.
East Gold Hill is requesting a 2-cent increase from 6 to 8 cent, generating roughly $8,000 on the tax rate. And we'll turn it over to Chief Chad Earnhardt for his presentation.
I don't have much of a presentation for you. I'm just going to lay out some of our needs and pretty much how we come up with our budget figures. As you'll see, we've got a budget before the tax increase at the 06 cent was only $106,000. That's approximately $3,000 less than it was the previous year due to reevaluation in Rowan County. And other than that, we were looking at our new engine for our station within the next 2 years, probably going to cost in the neighborhood of $350,000 to $450,000. I'm also looking at new air packs. Ours are at the end of their life stage. That's going to be anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 to replace all of ours. And that's the biggest majority of our tax increases for those two things. The extra money we would be taking in would pretty much go into a reserve account to purchase the new engine, and the other half would go to purchase the new air packs. That's pretty much all I've got. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
If I may add a little something, in 2006, we, between Rowan and Cabarrus County, we took in $98,323. Over the years, it has gone up to a high of, in 2011, we received $122,787. From then till now, we have seen a decline over these years from the 122 to 106. It's hard to operate on $106,000. So that's Chad came to us with a budget, and we looked at it pretty hard and studied and everything else, and we at first had thought maybe 1 cent, and then we got to looking at our needs and our future expansions and everything else, and we decided to go ahead and try for 2 cents, because that's what our commissioners from Rowan had suggested for Rowan County. So to be fair to the citizens of both counties, we didn't want to charge one rate and another one a different rate, because that just gets all messed up. Especially one neighbor talks to another neighbor and they want to know why and all that other stuff. So hopefully everyone will see what we're trying to do and won't get too mad at us.
Would like to add one more thing, something I forgot about. But we are currently in the process of redoing our fire insurance rating. Right now, we're currently at 9. In August 31st of this year, here in just a few months, we've got an inspection coming up, and we hope to get a 6 or 7. So with our calculations, even if we were to get this increase, the actual homeowner should be saving money by the time you figure in the cost of insurance. So we took that into effect heavily when we were discussing this budget.
Gentlemen, can you tell me what the breakdown is between Cabarrus and Rowan County calls? What percentages go to where?
I can tell you that. We run approximately 220 calls a year total, total both counties. And there again, it's about 80% medical, 20% fire. And probably 25 to 30 of those on average is in Cabarrus County. So 25 to 30 calls out of the 220. So very heavy Rowan County, which is where the majority of our district lies. I think about 2/3 of our district is in Rowan County.
Oh, and we are staffing.
Yeah, I didn't really cover that yet, but we are also requesting a portion of the staffing grant from your county this year. I know in the past we've turned that down. Well, about 10 years ago, I think, when it first started, we turned it down. Didn't really feel we needed it at the time. We had good help. And over the years, our staffing during the day has gotten less and less. We used to have a company that employed about 10 of our people, and they would let them leave for fire calls, and now we've got, I think, 3 that work there that can still leave, but that's about all I've got during the day. So we are asking for a portion of your staffing grant that you offer. But if we were to get the staffing grant, it's also going to come with some increased costs that you'll see throughout the budget as far as workers' comp, equipping members, and so forth. So, got numerous needs.
So I see that you guys have not had a tax increase since the mid-1990s. That's
I'm
the
not sure
sentence?
about Cabarrus. I know in Rowan County, we raised it in 2002.
It was done at the same time.
Should've been about the
So
same
whenever it was
time.
done here, it was done in
Okay.
Rowan. I'm
I
not
was
sure.
looking in the letter, I think it says in the second paragraph, we
Yeah, it
have
said in the letter.
been at a tax rate of 6 cent per 100 value since at least the
Yeah.
mid-1990s.
Okay.
Yeah, we were at 5 and went to 6.
Okay. But that was not 2002 then, that was the 1990s.
Yeah, it would have been a 9,
Okay.
probably.
And then on the rating of the 9S and that you hope to go to a 6 or 7, I don't know enough about that to understand the hope that you have. I think it says in here you've been working toward that. So is there some way that you guys can kind of get a feel, that you feel like you can get that, what things have you done to put you in that position, or?
Yeah, we've pretty much been working on that for about the last 10 years. We've actually never had a lower than 9 inspection. And that pretty much what we've done up to date. We've bought equipment that's been needed to meet the standards. We've tried to achieve the training levels that are required to meet the standards, pre-planning and so forth, where we actually go out to businesses, take a look at them, and make a plan basically in case they were to catch on fire. So we put about 10 years worth of work into it, and we'll definitely get a 7. We're hoping to get a 6, which the lower you go, the better insurance rate. So shouldn't have any problem at all getting a 7, but we'd be happy as we could be if we could get a 6.
Okay, any other questions?
So,
We-
yeah, I'm sorry. Could you give us, in the next, I don't know how long it would take you, but write down the steps that you have taken and your milestones, which is what I had asked. Alan's talking about doing that. So could you document the things that you have done towards this insurance rate?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I live in the city limits of Concord, and so I've had to try to learn about volunteer fire departments because honestly, before having to be here and hear the proposals and the requests every year, I really have taken it for granted
Yeah.
that I know where the fire hydrant is, it's right across the street. So I have taken it for granted up until having to go through this, but I just think for me, it's interesting to know about the insurance rate and how that can be impacted by what you do. And
Right.
if you were able to write out the things that you've done, then it might be beneficial to Alan that these are some things that you did, and when they're trying to plan out their scope, they might look at that and go, we didn't think about that, or, something like that. I think that might be very helpful.
Okay.
But
That's
usually
no
in
problem.
our presentations, that insurance reduction is a big talking point.
And that's what,
And-
we've been working on that, like I say, for at least 10 years. And most of it's just documentation. It's stuff we've been doing for 30 years.
Yeah, I don't want to see the whole book, but
Yeah.
just some idea.
It's about that.
Of some of the things that you've done, and that you can say, well, 2 years ago we did this, and therefore that's helped us out, and that kind of stuff, so.
Well,
Does,
You mentioned hydrants. We've got one hydrant in Gold Hill, so the rest of them, we've got water points, which we put in over the past
Yeah, that's part of it too.
years. It's part of that process.
and do you have some ponds that you can access to?
That's all we've got is ponds.
Does that make sense? They make an arrangement with farmers to access if we don't have a drought,
Right.
so that you have access to them. And now I forgot what I was going to ask. Hang on, let me think.
Well, you're thinking, Chief, you guys go all the way to 52?
Yes, we do.
You do. So
52
can you
runs
talk
right
about-
down through the middle.
You're a rural area, but you got some pretty good-sized businesses out there. Can
We
you
do.
talk
Yeah.
about, who are they?
Well,
We don't have a lot of big ones, but we've got,
Yeah, and the highway.
And the highway, yeah.
most of our businesses are,
Staylight and
yeah,
Vulcan?
Staylight and Vulcan, they're rock quarries, that's,
In the
I guess,
lumber
the
yard, or the lumber-
majority. Yeah, we've got 6 or 8 lumber yards. And that's about it. We don't really have a commercial base, really.
Right.
One store and a bunch of farmhouses. That's the majority of our district.
And the dynamite.
Chief,
Yeah,
do
okay.
you keep record of your response time,
Yes, we do.
do you know what your average, I mean, I know it relates directly with the ISO rating,
Right.
but do you know what your response time is, average response time?
We normally get a piece of apparatus en route with at least one person within about 2 minutes. Now, that's just one person.
Your average
Now,
turn.
that's en route within 2 minutes, but the
Right.
response time to the incident?
We're probably looking at 6 to 8 minutes before we actually get on the scene of an incident.
And this question, I guess, is for all of these who are here today. To this point, there's like been no public input or anything. This is just what you guys come and propose, and then there's time for public input between
They-
now and then.
They do, they have a board, an executive board, as well as the fire department, and they hold annual meetings. And the board and the fire department, correct me if I'm wrong, the staff recommends to the board, and the board is made up of individuals who live in that district.
Yeah.
And they are the ones that are actually recommending the increase.
Additionally, we have 2 fire commissioners, or what are called fire commissioners in Rowan County, that are people outside the department that the Rowan County commissioners pick. And they have also approved this budget. They look at it from an impartial view. So,
Okay.
And then, I remembered what it was. The staffing grant, you're asking for 15, which is half of the other staffing grant.
It is, it's half of the Richfield, which was receiving 30, and so 15 will go to Richfield and 15 would go to East Gold Hill.
Okay. And does Rowan County offer any staffing grants?
no, I do not.
And the proposal is that everybody in your district, both counties, would have the same fire tax rate.
You're right, that's correct.
So they're really I think you asked this, but I didn't write it down. How much of your land is in Cabarrus versus Rowan? I heard you say it, but I don't think
think
that-
about a third of our district is in Cabarrus.
Thank
So
you.
probably 2/3 of it's Rowan.
And how many acres do you cover? You asked that on, what's the last one you did?
17 square miles, I believe.
And I can get you a breakdown of each fire district with the square miles if you'd like.
Okay, have you gotten it all out? Thank you very much. We appreciate you being with us today.
All right, appreciate y'all's time.
All right, next we'll, I guess, move on to Harrisburg. And we have Chief Brian Dunn and I believe Town Manager Mike Rose. Harrisburg is requesting a 2-cent increase, raising their rate from 11.15 to 13.15, generating approximately $114,000.
Thank you all very much for taking time to hear from us. We are also going through the joy of the budget time, as you all are, and dealing with the same kind of issues as far as what effects legislation may or may not have on our budgets. But to this point, we're trying to move forward. We're excited and happy to say that Station 3 is underway and up out of ground. Steel is up. This is a station that's located on the corner of Rocky River Road and Pembroke, so it covers a lot of the southeastern portion of the fire district. A large portion of that covers our unincorporated area of the fire district as well as within the incorporated area of Harrisburg. During our budget process, as we've gone through to date, our council has identified the need to increase the fire tax district rate inside of Harrisburg by 2 cents. And this has helped in efforts to help cover the costs now, particularly of the operating expenses that we envision coming through now as we open up Station 3 so that we can continue to provide the same level of service, increase certainly our response times in those areas. Our 2 stations that we have now are both more towards the western portion of the town. So this is going to help us provide or continue to provide the level of service that that we would like to do. So we're going to increase, our budget proposal now has that increase of the 2 cents in the Harrisburg end, and we're coming here and asking if the county be willing to do that in the unincorporated area as well. Again, this will help cover a lot of the costs that we have as we staff the new station, as we provide the services, the equipment that's necessary to go through there. We have been fortunate enough now, as through the process of doing a lot of different things. One is the addition of the station in particular, the increase of water lines and so forth, that we have been able to get our ISO rating down to a 4. Right?
4 for the entire.
For the entire district, including the unincorporated area. So there have been a lot of benefits that we've been able to see as we've grown, and as we've been able to increase our fire coverage. It's no secret, too, as you all know, that all of Cabarrus County and Harrisburg is seeing a lot of growth now and seeing more that's to come. We're getting a lot of interest. Excited about seeing that, the things of both on the residential, but even now some of the commercial development. So again, this is our effort to try and stay on top of things and make sure that we're providing the best level of coverage that we can. Certainly Chief Dunn is here. I had hoped to be here just as the pretty face and let him do all of the talking. He wouldn't let me get away with that. But Chief Dunn is certainly here to be able to answer any questions he can, more specifically about what we would need, what we're doing, and moving forward. But I can also answer any questions as well, as far as from the town standpoint. So with that end, be glad to answer whatever we can.
Great, thank you. Questions, commissioners? I had one. Are you totally paid, or you still have some volunteer?
At this point, we're still considered a combination department because we have about 3 true volunteers left. And
Really?
they're really older gentlemen who have been on the department 30-plus years, and they still help out where they can. They might not necessarily go into a burning building, but they provide other services, medical, or just simply doing on-scene things that they can do, outside of a structure.
Right, so for the most part,
So for the most part, we're almost totally paid.
right, thank you.
So how many paid do you have?
Right now, we
3
have
volunteers.
Right now, we have 24 full-time firemen who staff our Engine 1 and Engine 2. So we have 3 shifts and 8 on each shift. Then we'd have administration, which includes myself, a deputy chief of operations. We have a logistical officer who handles all the maintenance and things that logistic does. We have a part-time training person, and then we have a full-time fire marshal.
And with the new station, when will it open? And will that mean increased staffing? And what will that look like?
Yes, at this particular time, the general contractor predicts completion by November 30th of this year. I would suspect it'll take us about 30 days to occupy the building, get it going. So we're projecting January 1st to occupy the building and for it to be operational. Right now, the budget calls for adding 9 additional firefighters to basically staff that station. So, and that's what the manager has presented to our town council.
You said that the Harrisburg Council has, or I guess they're agreeing to, at this point, to a 2-cent increase, and that's why you're asking us for the 2 cent for the unincorporated areas. Is the tax rate the same inside and outside?
Correct. It is today.
What's the current tax rate?
11.15 cents.
So you want to go up to 13.15?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Okay. And I'm glad to hear that the steel is up, because that was a big conversation in previous meetings about.
I should have taken a picture.
You and me both.
But I'm sure you are. We had previous conversations about raising the rate to help pay for that, and where you were in the process, and how far in advance do you raise a rate to pay for something, to be prepared to be able to afford it, and that kind of stuff. So that was a conversation that we had had in years past on how they were doing with that particular location.
That particular station is also one that the county is going to co-locate one of our EMS stations at this facility as well.
Do you run, you're right close to Mecklenburg County there, do you run calls in Mecklenburg County? If so, what percentage?
I just ran a monthly report. We may go over there once or twice a month, so, 20 times a year maybe. In particular area we go to is really to assist Mecklenburg County on 485 is most of the calls.
Right.
Mecklenburg County, the only volunteer department near us in Mecklenburg County is just there, 485 and Harrisburg Road. So that's really the only part that we go to anymore. City of Charlotte pretty much has everything else.
Can you give me an estimate of your annual calls?
I think last year was close to 1,800. This year we're predicting right at 2,000.
You're splitting calls between, as we heard from the other groups, about how much was medical-related versus fire-related, or?
Yeah,
I mean-
ours is typically the same. It's probably 80-20. I don't know. Steve may have the actual breakdown.
74% EMS, 26 fire.
This is probably a dumb question, but I want to know from my own information, why is it that a fire truck is dispersed to what an EMS truck would be normally dispersed for? Is that a requirement? Is that a state mandate? Or is that something that the 911 dispatcher dispatches the fire truck and an EMS at the same time?
You want me to? help
Either
you?
way, would you like that one?
Well, I'll just say that, normally where fire stations are located and the fire departments, they will typically, as first responders, be able to arrive and provide that pre-hospital care before an EMS unit can get there.
And the only thing I'll add to that is Harrisburg in particular is a little bit different. When Cabarrus EMS was founded, I think in 1972, at that particular time, most of the ambulances were in Concord. So Harrisburg Rescue Squad at the time took on the endeavor of becoming more than just basic EMT. So they basically became what we call intermediates, which is just below paramedics. And we still carry that certification today. And we're the only fire department in Cabarrus County to do that. So we feel like we provide even a higher level of medical care when we arrive on the scene. Our firefighters trained to be able to push drugs, particularly cardiac drugs. When somebody has a heart attack, we're able to put tubes in people's throat just as paramedics do. So we're real proud of that, and our guys work real hard to keep those certifications up to date.
Well, that's a good thing. You never know how much you appreciate that type of service until you get in a situation where you or a family
Indeed.
member or a friend need it.
Right.
And so it's a good thing, but I mean, it's a lot of money expended though when you've got two different services doing the same thing. But if one gets there before the other, then obviously that is sometimes the difference between life and death. And I fully understand that.
Yeah, as Chief said, most of the time they can get there a little quicker, but when the EMS gets there, they don't stop working. They're still assisting that entire call out there, so they're part of our pit crew approach, and then there's times if it's multiple patients or if it's a serious, one of their staff may be driving our ambulance because we've got two paramedics in the back as well. So they're a tremendous help to our EMS folks. So.
Since I asked the other folks, what is your square mileage and how much of your district is in the city limits and how much of it is in the incorporated areas?
The total fire district is just over 30 square miles. Do you have what the breakdown is?
I do, but I do not have it with me. I'm not sure.
I think
will
it's
get it. I didn't know you were going to ask for it.
My guesstimate is it's about 60-40, with 60% being in the incorporated area and 40% out.
You usually do pretty well on trying to guess what I'm going to ask you.
It's like
I'm glad to know that I finally got a question over you that you weren't prepared for.
Yep.
Okay, are there any other questions? Thank you very much.
All
We
right, thank you
appreciate
for
you
your
being
time.
with us
Thank you, we
tonight.
appreciate it.
right, I believe Board President Ken Nichols has arrived, so we'll ask Ken Nichols and Chief Artie Craig to come up for Flow Store. Flow Store is requesting less than a half a cent. They're requesting, their current tax rate is 4.6, and they're requesting to go to 5 cent. That will generate approximately a little over $17,000 for the department.
Yeah, the Flow Store Fire Department has one of the lowest tax rates in the county. I think there's one other volunteer department that is just a little less than we are. And we're trying to improve staffing, adding more people to provide faster responses, and that's why we're looking for this small increase from, as Steve said, from 0.046 to 0.505.
Commissioners, do you have questions on this one?
I'm sorry, I was trying to write, what did you say the increased revenue would be on that?
It's
You just said it, and I didn't.
It's
be
currently-
exact at the 96.33 collection rate, it's $17,447.
And all of that money would go to staffing.
And that's what I was going to ask. How many staff do you have?
We do one a day. That increase would get us coverage for Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, so it may not be the same person every day, obviously
Right.
it wouldn't. So you just make sure you got somebody there daily, and now you want to have one on Saturday. That's where the extra funding
Yeah,
comes
Saturday
in.
and Sunday.
How many calls does Flow Store do?
Around 600, we fluctuate.
600 annual, same percentages as the others
I
that you
think,
burn?
you have ours?
Flow Store, 21% fire and 79% EMS for last year. These numbers are for the budget year 2013-14.
How about your fleet? How many vehicles are you running?
We have 2 engine companies, a tanker, a medium rescue, 2 brush trucks, and a squat truck.
Are they pretty old, or are they getting old, or?
Our engine companies are in real good shape. Our tanker's over 20 years old.
Okay.
We have spec'd a tanker, and we're waiting on all the bids to come back. And with that tanker, our tanker we have right now is really just a 1,000 gallon. Our new truck will be over 2,000.
Okay. So,
Other questions?
What's your acreage or square miles, whatever, and, I think that's my first.
22 square miles.
22. And I didn't ask anybody else, but it would be helpful to know, because I know that you can give a great answer. On the staffing, how do you determine who's going to be there, how many, how do you pay, how do you know who's going to be there? You said you want to increase it for Saturday and Sunday,
Yeah.
but, you know,
Well,
as the chief,
We
what's that
have,
process?
we have 6 part-timers, and we split the days as they put in for them. Right now, what we have a good ratio of volunteers show up for all calls, so we average about 12 firefighters on fires. What we're trying to do is, it takes us, if we don't have a part-timer, our average en route time is less than 2 minutes. If we don't have staffing at the station, we're averaging 6 minutes to get to the station, to get a truck en route. So that's going drastically. There is a lot of obviously a lot. There's probably, overall with this county staffing we started doing with y'all, there's houses standing now that wouldn't be standing before the staffing. It was about 2 months ago, we actually saved a really nice house. We got there in time. The fire was actually burning the windows and stuff. We put it out, so. Had we not had all the staffing, Al and everybody, perfect.
So the point of having the person there is that's the one that's going to
Get the truck there.
get the truck there, and everybody else is going to know where to show up,
Mhm.
which is what I thought was going on, but I just
Yep.
want to make sure we,
Get that water there.
like I said, I'm a city girl. I haven't ever jumped on a fire truck and.
Yeah.
As the chief said too, we recently added additional staffing on the weekend, and we have seen real benefits from it. And that's why we want to continue it. It has definitely been very beneficial.
And we have just over 100 fire hydrants, so getting our trucks there is really important. We have to bring a lot of trucks.
Okay, anything else you'd like to ask? Thank you very much. We appreciate you being with us tonight.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Next, we have Mount Pleasant. We have Town Manager Randy Holloway and Assistant Chief? Deputy Chief Jeff Watts. Mount Pleasant is requesting a 2-cent increase, raising their tax rate from 8.3 to 10.3 cent, and that'll roughly generate $75,000 additional for the department.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, commissioners and staff members, for allowing us to come and speak with you tonight. Chief Watson and I will tag team a little bit. I'll try to answer the questions about the budget issue, and then anything fire department related, he'll try to address that for you. Just a little bit of history. Sent out a handout here. 2 years ago, we came before you and asked for a 2-cent increase, actually a 4-cent increase from 6.3 cent to 10.3 cent. And the commissioners approved a 2-cent increase for us that increased about $72,000 in revenue. Want to let you know what we did with that. We told you that we would purchase a tanker, and we've done that. The tanker is now in operation, doing very well. Annual debt payment of about $37,000 for 10 years. We also wanted to increase our paid staff from 2 firefighters on 24/7 to 3 firefighters 24/7, and we did that. That is a very expensive cost. You can see there from item B, that's $99,000 a year to add those 3 positions 24/7. So as it stands today, we have 3 firefighters on duty in Mount Pleasant 24/7, 365. And we're very proud of that for a small town and a rural district. The total increase in equipment and personnel 2 years ago was $136,541. There was a difference there of $64,000. So what the department did was shift some funding priorities around, and the town increased some of what it was putting in the fire department budget to make that work. They began to actively work on lowering the fire insurance rate in the rural district from a Class 9 that it currently is down to a Class 6. And let me pause there for a second. You keep hearing that Class 6 brought up a lot. That's the lowest point that a homeowner gets any benefit. From the 9 to an 8, there's about an 8% reduction in insurance premiums. From the 8 to the 7, 8% again. From the 7 to the 6, 8% again. From the 6 to a 1, there is no savings for the homeowner. There is for commercial, industrial properties, but not for homeowners. So the rural districts typically target the Class 6 because typically that's what they have in their districts is a residential and some business, churches, et cetera, but mostly residential. So that's what we're currently trying to do, is move towards a Class 6 in the rural district. It's currently a 9, and in the town is a 9, and we're trying to move that down to a 4. I had to put the brakes on the fire department last fall. They're moving very aggressively, and Chief Watts can address some of that towards having ISO to come in. We wanted to do the rural district and the town simultaneously. With some of the discussions about Mount Pleasant Middle School, if it's located where the existing school is at, it's going to require, fire marshal can chime in, it's going to be sprinkled, and there's some question of whether or not there's going to be enough water available for fire protection. So we may have to put an additional water line in up Highway 49 back to 73 to a line that comes in from Concord to provide enough water for the school, which then would improve the water system in town. So we're trying to tie all that together simultaneously. So I slowed them up a little bit until we see how this shakes out. They'll be back on track here shortly. So we're trying to get both done at the same time. On the second page there under item 2, last year we were notified that we would lose the staffing grant, and I'll talk about that a little more in a second. But the fire department, again, shifted some budget items around, and that year we did ask for an increase from 8.3, where we're currently at, to 10.3, and last year the commissioners did not see that, and that was denied. So we're back again this year, asking for the increase from 8.3 to 10.3. That will generate about $74,000 a year in additional revenue. The department desperately needs a renovation to their station. Most of the volunteer departments were not built to accommodate paid firefighters. There's no living quarters. The restroom facilities are less than adequate. The kitchen, the general living area, in their apparatus bay, they have two bays or three bays? Two bays. That are double
bays.
stacked. So you have to pull one truck out to get another truck out. So we've really outgrown the station in the way it was built back in the 70s and the way the department's operating today. So the town has agreed to create a capital reserve account and do something a little unusual to challenge the fire department to save as much as possible. At the end of the year, rather than any money remaining in the fire department budget rolling back to the general fund, it will go to the capital reserve account. So they'll be able to have that money. If the increase that we're asking for is approved, that $74,000 will go to that capital reserve account. They're evaluating right now what their capital needs are going to be over the next 10 years. When I met with them back in February, I guess it was, and told them if we move forward with your station renovation addition, based on today's budget, you're likely not to be able to replace any apparatus for 10 years. And I got some strange looks. So they're evaluating right now what their capital needs are going to be over the next 10 years, with the station addition being a very high priority. But we'd like to create the capital reserve account. The town will be helping fund that. Anything remaining in their budget, which your finance folks would tell you is very unusual, will go to that capital reserve account. And if you approve the request, that would also go there. We project that when we do the station renovations, depending on how many years we finance, we're looking at about $100,000 a year in debt service. Item 4, something I forgot to put on my budget request, I apologize to the fire marshal's office, is to reconsider the $30,000 staffing grant. Again, we're very fortunate right now to have 3 firefighters on 24/7. If we were able to have the staffing grant during those very critical hours of Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., when the volunteers are pressed to turn out because they're working their jobs, we would put a 4th person on so that when we roll out and we go in a lot of mutual aid calls in our surrounding departments, and I think they would tell you they depend on Mount Pleasant pretty heavily during the daytime because they're getting right now 3 paid positions, and with the staffing grant, they'd get 4 24/7. And that would also help us meet the mandated 2 in, 2 out rule from OSHA, that when you have paid firefighters, you have to meet that. And just summarizing a little bit about the rural district, answers Commissioner Poole's questions. Our rural district's 36 square miles. The town is 3.6 square miles, so the rural district is 10 times the size of the town. The tax district in the rural area is about 3 times the value of the town, and the rural district has about 5 times the population. Population rural district's about 7,800, and in the town it's 1,704, unless somebody was born last night. So, just again, a penny in the town generates about $12,900. In comparison, a penny in Concord would generate $1 million. A penny in the rural district generates about $37,000. And the town is contributing the equivalent of 13.5 cents of our tax rate in town goes to the fire department. Our tax rate is 50.5 cents, with 13.5 cents of that going to the fire department. The rural district right now is at 8.3 cents. Quick here. And I'll let Chief Watts answer questions that you might have about the fire department and call volume and things of that nature.
Same question I passed on to the others, the call. You know, there's a whole reason behind all that, but I just wanted to get the information
Yes,
collected.
sir. Our fire versus EMS is probably right around 80-20, about like everybody else. What was the other part of your question? I'm sorry.
The number of calls.
We run right at 1,000 calls per year.
And that's including your mutual aid calls, is that right?
Yes, that includes mutual aid.
Well, you know, it's a good thing that you're wanting to set money aside for the capital reserve. You know, obviously, that's a good thing. Because with your building being built in the 70s and you wanting to do an addition, I'm just, obviously I don't live in Mount Pleasant. I've been there, took the tour. Some of us took the tour either last year or sometime earlier this year. And I seen about the living quarters and all that. And I'm just wondering and thinking out of the box, if there's any particular reason why you want to stay at that same location, because you're so limited. To
Well,
me,
actually, right now, what we're looking at, we're considering staying at that location and upgrading versus moving to a new location right down the street from where we're at currently. We're getting prices back for doing both ways so that we can make an educated decision on what's going to be the best for us in the long run, financially, location-wise, and everything with that. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now.
Well, that's a good thing with the, unlike Harrisburg and Kannapolis and Concord, and I think Midland might be starting to gain a little bit of momentum, but the projected growth in Mount Pleasant is not that much over the next 10 years. You're looking at, I think, Randy, you said 1,740 residents. I don't know how many houses or structures that equates to, but with not a lot of projected growth in that area and everything going up, then I can see where that you definitely, need to have some additional revenue, because obviously nothing stays the same. It seems to always go up.
Yes, sir.
We are seeing some increase in inquiries about land availability and things of that nature, but we're a long ways from being what, Concord and Harrisburg and Midland, the other jurisdictions are seeing. But we are seeing a tick up in inquiries about land availability and things of that nature. In fact, I was just discussing something with the manager earlier that hopefully is going to pan out for us.
Are there additional questions? If not, we thank you, appreciate you coming.
Thank you, folks.
to Be with us tonight.
Have a pleasant evening.
Next, we have,
But
yes.
before they come up, I know it's about midstream, but there's a large chart here. Can you go through that chart real quick, and what does all that mean? You got some departments are showing a decrease in their valuation. What is that?
We'll probably need to have finance come up. That's their chart. So you got the values of the districts in 15, and then the values of the district in 16, and then it shows the decrease in the values or the increase in the values for the districts. Looks like the highlighted in red are showing the decrease in values. Is that correct?
Yes.
What contributes to the decrease?
I think some of the, I spoke with Brent Wiesner, our tax administrator, and some of it's a part of redistricting or maybe drawing the lines or something different. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. He told me about Midland.
Yeah, I know Midland
was
is
Midland
the
also.
appeal of the Corning
Yeah.
facility.
When it went down.
Right.
That's the one, that's the one he
That's
spoke
the
to me
huge
about.
one. Yeah,
Yeah, Concord Rural's probably annexation.
right. So what's the 5% collection fee?
The comparison there, it shows how we used to figure out if different departments needed their, this is probably better for me, if they needed supplementing in their budget. And in prior years, we would give if they did not collect as much as we thought they should, based on their valuation, we would give a supplement.
Right.
And right now, we're down to 2 fire departments who get a supplement, and that's the 2 that we have highlighted on over,
Mount Mitchell and Northeast.
yes, those 2.
Okay.
They're the ones currently.
And-
The amount will not go up. So this year, it looked like it would have went up of contribution, but we've got it stated where they will not go, it cannot increase, so we're going to keep a certain amount. So like this year, they're getting $85, which is not a lot, and $243 to go towards their budgets.
And that decreases as the department's tax rate increases and they generate additional funding.
The 1.5?
That's the current rate we charge for
The county
collections. Yes.
charges to process.
We used to do
collect,
5%, and we
process.
dropped it to 1.5 many years ago.
Right.
That's what the 1.5 represents. That collection rate is also used for, well, we've got different arrangements with the municipalities.
Just wanted,
Okay.
for their
Okay.
ability to understand what the chart says, so.
Yeah, and so the purpose of putting the 5% and the 1.5% on there is for us to be able to see that we've sent additional revenue to the
Correct.
volunteer fire
Well,
department.
the 1.5% is actually, the county keeps that.
That now.
But
But
it
that
used to
is
be
in
5.
comparison to what we used to charge was 5%.
5%.
Yes.
Right.
I'd have to look back, but I imagine it's more than 10 years that we've went
It
from
is.
Right.
1.5.
I've been here 11, it's not been.
Okay.
It's been 1.5 since I've been here.
It's been quite a long time.
You probably could delete that column then,
Yeah.
if it's not really relevant anymore. If it was recent,
There's-
we had
there's-
just done it
There's
in.
just 2 departments that are left in there that we,
We go through this exercise just to prove that the two, the little amounts that we give, the $85 and the $243, part of the exercise to figure out if we do still owe them additional funds.
I think what she's saying is.
But we, yeah, like you're saying, if we, it's 10, 11 years ago, we could.
Well, I mean,
For
if
purposes
it's
for the
valid
public.
for you or valid for the fire departments, then by all means. But if it's not a valid computation or needed, then that's your decision for finance. Do you have, or could you provide to us the impact of the sales tax bill on each of the fire departments?
yes. I think
Give
you-
that to you.
Felt like
So we already have that in, I thought it was in there.
that here?
This is
I
yours.
thought it was in there.
Don't pay no attention to this. This is
Okay,
what I
it's
showed
in
it
it,
going
could you do it
up.
in one chart?
I've got a.
Do you have it in one chart?
We
in
have
the-
charts
Is it in
that
the
has-
notebook?
No, this is things I provide for Steve and his group, so you can pass on to the.
If
But
you
the
could-
sales tax, what we provide them is like this year, we had 3% increase for the county, so we predicted how much we would, they received for 15, and then increased it by 3%. So, just by looking at this chart here, with the 3% increase for 2016, all the fire districts will be receiving like $808,000, so that would go away.
Now, if
By
if
year
we,
three.
I would like to see that,
Sure.
just so that, next Monday, when we get here, just a little spreadsheet that tells us the fire districts and what your, it depends on how much detail you feel you have readily available. Don't go and spend a lot of time on it.
And I can provide
Tell us
this.
what they got this current year, what you're projecting they're gonna get next year, and that would be, what your projected amount is what we would think that if it goes away, that's how much they would lose. So,
That's correct.
I think it's important for us to have some idea of what impact that's gonna have on our budget in the event it goes away, whether it's this year or next year. If something happens, we need to know that there's $800-some thousand that they're all gonna be looking for help on, because that's a big amount for us to do. And for all of you folks that are still here, you need to understand, and I know you know this, but please understand, we are thrilled to have the volunteer fire departments in Cabarrus County, because you do a great service for the people in your communities, and you do a great service for all the taxpayers and for our county budget by us being that way and not being trying to have a county-funded fire department that's, kind of all around where all the municipalities are covering their area. So you do a great job, and we do appreciate the job that you do. And I don't know that we say that enough, because when we talk to you, it's during the budget meeting, and we all tend to be pretty bad on raising taxes on anybody. So, but you do need to know, you really are valued, and we need to say that more often. And I think we need to make sure that everybody understands that, if there's that big, that's half a cent on a tax rate, and that's everybody that would have to pay that in order just to cover something lost because of the sales tax. So,
We can provide you a spreadsheet also that we had built a spreadsheet to show what the tax rate would have to go up to recoup the cost for each district, so we'll provide that as well.
that would be great. And I just can't remember. I know there's a map that shows where all the districts are, and I don't know if that would be helpful to everybody to.
Sorry, Diane asked for
Oh,
that.
okay,
so we're
sorry.
looking at that.
And could you, I don't know if you can overlay it on there. Maybe if you do this, put in there the current tax rate for all of them. I know I've seen that before, and that might be in here, and I just haven't gotten to it, where you just show the current tax rate and what they're asking for. Because,
It's there.
who said it?
It's there.
That's right there, okay, I'm sorry. Because somebody said it, we have the lowest tax rate of any of the other volunteer fire departments, so that's good to know. You're all providing a good service, but obviously different parts of the county there's a different tax rate to support your service.
We'll provide some more additional information for Monday.
Thanks.
All right, next we have Northeast Volunteer Fire Department. Northeast is requesting a 6-cent increase, raising their tax rate from 6.7 to 12.7. We have Board President Pat Bergeron and Tracy Brown, I'm sorry. Long night.
All right. Thanks for letting us come and speak to you tonight. I brought Ms. Brown with me if we have any financial questions. She's our Secretary Treasurer. She can help me on that. I just took office with the board in March. Northeast was elected, and then elected president of the board in April. So I'm a rookie first timer here with you guys, and I appreciate the opportunity. Now, I submitted a PowerPoint presentation along with the budget. I'm not going to beat an old horse to death. You guys have heard plenty of conversation about what we're facing down at Northeast and the rural part of the county. With the 6-cent increase, the majority of that money is going to go for staffing. We started 24-hour staffing back in December of last year. We've seen a need for it. I have to just about to make calls, to make sure we have people at the station manning the truck and getting them to the call in an acceptable time, en route in an acceptable time. So we do provide a 24-hour staffing right now, 7 days a week. Right now, we're having to dip into our reserve funds to keep this going. If we don't get the increase, we're going to have to back up and take a look at what we're doing because we're pulling money out of our reserve, which we don't have very much reserve now, to make this work. And we've seen it work. Just in the 6 months we've been doing it, we've seen accomplishments. In the past, there's been several calls, and Steve, we've talked about it, where we didn't have the appropriate number of people on a call. And now here, the past 6 months, we've been making those quotas. It's been working for us and everything. The second thing that the increase will go for is replacing a 1994 engine company. It's past its 20-year time span. So we'll be looking to replace that truck. And we're going to ask a 15-year loan through the county to be able to pay that back in 15 years, $30,000 a year, a no interest loan. And the equipment that's needed for that truck to get it in service. And what we would do with that existing truck is we would make it into a service company to help with our ISO rating as far as getting tools and equipment on the scene that's needed. The third thing would be sprinkler the building. Right now, our building is not sprinklered, and with the water line coming through from Tuckertown to the city of Concord, we want to upgrade the building. The city's been gracious enough to allow us to put in 3 hydrants, and with the county's help with some funding for those hydrants, and that's very appreciative, to make that happen. Now, of course, you know, everybody's talked about lowering the ISO rating and everything, and that would be one of our pushes also to help offset the increase to the citizens of Northeast. But when we're talking about taxes and everything, there's nothing in our district other than Klein's Country Antiques as far as a business. Everything else is rural. It's farmland, it's cows, it's trees and everything. So we don't have a whole lot to pull from. Now I'm going to use my house as an example, my property, okay? If at the assessed rate, my home is valued at $231,000, okay? I pay $155 a year in fire tax. So if we do the 6 cent increase, that's going to put me at $310 a year, which is not that much. But in the rural part of the county, most of our people, which is 1,100 people, in our county, or in our district, they pay less than that because they're on the farm tax program. They're either growing trees, they're growing grain, cattle, things of that nature. So they get a reduced rate. Somebody that's on a farm tax rate, they might have property that's valued at $969,000, but the assessed value is only $284,000 because of the farm tax. So, they're paying $190 a year in fire tax instead of a $649 bill in farm tax. So it's not going to affect a lot of people in our district greatly as far as that increase, because of the majority of them are in a farm tax or situation. We also man a medic truck for Cabarrus County EMS. There's 3 in the county, one at Coldwater, one at Midland, and ours. We maintain that truck, we staff that truck, we make sure all the equipment's up to date and is needed. When Cabarrus County runs low on EMS trucks, they activate the 3 units in the county, and then we're put on standby to assist Cabarrus County EMS with transport of patients. And in that end of the county, it takes EMS a lot longer to get to us. So our fire department really means a lot to our citizens. It's elderly people in our district that rely on us a lot. And with the response time, if they pull EMS 6 out of Mount Pleasant to stand by at 49 to 601, that adds another 6 minutes or longer to get down there to our people in our district. So that's another thing, that we contribute to the county and the citizens of our community and everything. And that's basically it. I'll be glad to entertain any questions. And keep in mind, 1 cent in our district is only about $10,000. So the 6 cents is going to get us, $60,000 or give or take.
Questions? I guess one of the questions we've asked is how many calls do you typically run in a year?
I had that paper here with me a while ago, Steve. I don't know what I did with it.
Last year in the district itself was 90 calls. When you add, I think, mutual aid calls with that, I want to say it was like 126, in that ballpark. For inside their district, it was 90 calls last year. Fire versus EMS calls, 78% were EMS and 22% were fire related.
Yeah, we're at 89 calls total for the year, going into the end of May. 50 of them were fire calls and 39 are EMS just for this year, so.
I have some questions. After reviewing all of these different budgets all evening, for the fire districts there, I see a lot of similarities, of your expenses and that type thing. And when it, say, for example, when it comes to insurance, does Northeast and all the districts, this might be a question for the manager, I don't know, do they buy their insurance individually, or do they have a co-op that the Firefighters Association, for example?
Each individual department has their own insurance.
So one
most
might
of them are
be
through
with
VFIS.
insurance. It might be, say, insurance company A would do Northeast, insurance company C could do Harrisburg, or however. And it seems like that there needs to be some type of group, some type of coming together of the minds, instead of having 5 or 6 or 7, in this case 16 potentially different fire department insurance companies, that it could be one and broken down with each district, having so much set aside for the value of their equipment and all of that. And it would probably save a considerable amount of money by doing that. I don't know how that would be handled, who would do it, if the county manager would have to do that, or if the fire department chiefs come together and say, look, we need to try to work together, just like the county, we try to work with municipalities, we try to work with other entities to bring costs down by buying together, lumping everything in and trying to buy together. And it seems like some of these things that could possibly save money for the fire departments. And Tracy, you may have a comment on that.
No, I think it's an excellent idea. I mean, you can see our insurance costs are.
Oh, it's tremendous. And you look at all of the fire departments, you look at every one of them, it's probably excess of $250,000 or more.
Mm-hmm.
And, you save 10% or 15%, whatever it would be, it would be beneficial to the fire departments.
That was one of the highlights that was actually in the fire study that was done a couple years ago, at looking at all purchasing and finding ways to do joint purchasing to save on costs for all the departments.
Yeah, not just insurance, all the way through apparatus, through.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, it needs to,
Personal
everything.
protective equipment, anything. We all know that you can save by bulk purchasing. So we're moving in that direction. Bobby and Steve and Jason, they're having those conversations with the chiefs. It's slow go, but we're getting there. We're going to get there.
Well,
Soon-
I'm hoping
sooner
the
than later.
the sooner the better,
And there's other ways to make some savings, and we may be recommending to you over the next year or so as well, once we talk with the service. The fire service is changing. These guys do an excellent job, but as every one of them have said, staffing is a problem. How do we address that? And again, a lot of them are getting aging equipment, and that stuff is not cheap. So how do we look at it from a county perspective to make sure they have the equipment they need to provide that fire protection, and how do we fund it? And how do they fund it, or how do we help them fund it? So
That's right. And, in the event that there's more than, the need is for more than one apparatus, then obviously, like you said, hey, sometimes two's cheaper than just one, or three or four, depending on what it is. And, but I'm hoping that we can have that collaboration, though, and bring those costs down, so.
Other questions?
Stay consistent. Your square miles or area that you cover, do you know what that is?
We'll get it to you.
And I guess you're saying, is that what you're saying is going to come in that map as well?
There is a map, there is a map in the
And I think he's going to send
PowerPoint.
that to us too, I think, okay.
Yeah,
That
we'll
kinda
get
shows
you a
our
map and
district.
the square miles.
If I could remember that, I wouldn't have to ask the question.
Sorry, the legend is real small.
Looking at the map that's in your PowerPoint.
page 116.
Yeah. Where you're questioning talking about expanding the district, what do these colors represent? I see light blue and pink and
Light blue represents the rural district for Northeast.
as it currently stands.
Yes. I'd have to look at the date of that map, but it should be. The dark blue just represents the parcels that are beyond 5 miles. They're within 5 to 6 miles from the station. That affects insurance ratings on what a citizen can get. Basically, when it comes to the ISO and lowering the rating, only the properties within 5 miles of the station would get a lower rating. Anything over 5 miles can't get any better than a 9.
Okay. And this dialogue is talking about expanding the district. So if you expanded the district, then you would have more of those 5-mile parcels?
Yes.
But basically what that's illustrating is that there's money inside Cabarrus County that goes to Gold Hill and Richfield that Northeast could cover if the districts were realigned, redrawn. That's basically what that's explaining, is that, there's funds going outside the county that could be in the county to assist us, yes.
Right. And so if you had this tax increase and increase your staffing levels, you would have adequate staff to cover a larger area? Is that what you're?
We can cover just about all that except for what some of Richfield down towards Mattins Grove Church Road.
Well, the one thing about coverage and staffing is it's one thing to put one person on at a station, but there's minimum ISO requirements, and as he mentioned earlier, where we have found that there's been some calls that have not had the minimum number of people. When it comes to the ISO, they've got to be able to provide an apparatus and 4 people minimum on all structure calls, being fire alarms or working fires. So, you know, they've done well with putting a person on and trying to do some 24-hour coverage, which has reduced their response time, but it still doesn't provide adequate protection. You still have to have, you know, the number of people turning out to the calls. And as you've heard from most of the departments, the volunteers continue to decrease. So, you know, you would have to look at more volunteers, more staffing to be able to adequately cover, you know, more area.
Yeah, we still rely on volunteers a lot.
Right.
You know, even though we get the truck en route with one person at an acceptable time, it's just, we still need, you know, to depend on the volunteers.
And that continues to be more difficult.
Across the county.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
You mentioned sprinklers in your building, which I've been aware of that for some time. And so did this water line, is there a tap on that I think the issue was you didn't have a water supply.
Correct.
And so is that corrected? Do you know?
With the water line coming through the basin transfer from Tuckertown to
Right.
Concord, the city has allowed us to put on 3 hydrants, and that's in the process of being completed. But yes, that's 3 more water points for us in our district, plus a water source.
And as far as the sprinklers, I think we're still evaluating. Last I heard that line potentially would not always have water on it.
That's what I thought.
And that creates an issue when it comes to the sprinkler system, because by code, it's going to have a dedicated water source. So, you know, potentially the cost to put a sprinkler system in the building could go up tremendous, because they could potentially have to put a site tank, a tank on site to provide the needed water for the sprinkler system. That also, there's a pressure issue then at that point, so the department could be faced with looking at a fire pump just to provide the needed pressure for a sprinkler system. It would be our recommendation to the department to look at probably some type of mobile unit that would be separate from the main building. That way they would not have to sprinkler the building and would be, in our opinion, more of a cost saving for the department.
You're saying some sort of additional housing unit for the firefighters?
Yep. We had contacted the State Fire Marshal's office because we're running into this with all the departments, you know, looking at future staffing, and, you know, their recommendation was exactly that, to look to put a modular unit on the property. The problem is that when you introduce a residential area into a mixed use, then that residential by code has to be sprinklered, and that's what they're being faced with.
So the fact that there are vehicles parked in there with gas and things of that nature?
Yeah, because you've got a business use, you've got a storage use, and then you introduce a residential use.
Right.
But we're still not sure about the water line situation as far as it having water on it continuously.
Right.
I know when Steve informed me about that a couple weeks ago, I talked with Merle Hamilton with the city, and it was his understanding that it would have water on it continuously, because the city has to draw down so many gallons a day to meet their quota or the contract with Albemarle. So we're still kind of in limbo on that one as far as actual which way it's going to be.
What is their deadline, or timeline to activate that? Do you know?
They get through all that rock.
They're still installing, yeah.
So we've met with their engineers out there. We actually got an estimate for Northeast of getting some engineering done, and it was
I believe it was
way too high.
$84,000.
Just to get it engineered, because what's happened is, as he said, the contractors run into so much rock. They know that to run a service line from this major water line over to their building is going to run into that same rock, and it's going to require a boring underneath 49. So there's a lot of expenses. That's why Steve started discussing the possibility of a separate housing unit, maybe a better alternative.
Might be much
that-
less expensive all around, huh?
Yeah, it is not a pressurized line on all times. It will have a cycling pump when they need water. It's not kept under pressure, and to keep it under pressure is extremely expensive. So Concord and Kannapolis chose to pump water when they need to. Now, the hydrants, we think, are going to work because there will be water in the line, and they can pull it out of the line with their apparatus. And what they've done is selected 3 locations. The contractor's putting a T-valve in those locations, and then Northeast is going to be looking at contracting to put the hydrant that goes with that. I think they believe with some contractors they've been working with, they can save some money. And one of those T-valves has been installed, and we've been billed and paid that. And we're waiting for the other 2, and I suspect they may have been installed, and it's just a delay getting the billing from Concord.
Those portable living units, we actually have one at Harrisburg Station 2. That's where our paramedics are staying now and have for several years now. Brian, I don't know, you know how long that's, it's been quite a few years that we've been out there.
Yeah, they lived in them for a couple of years, and then we did some renovations, and they're actually inside now for about
Oh, okay, good.
a year, I think.
And then they'll be the ones that are moving to the new station. But, so it can be done. It's not the ideal since you already have the space under your roof, but it can be done and still operate efficiently, so.
I have 2 questions. I have a copy of the fire study at home. I know that, but I'm not certain that these 3 do. I don't, Steve, you got one. Did you,
Yes.
you were here when they did that, I think. Might have been pre-Steve, so do you have?
We do. I got a PDF version we can send to you.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful for you to see what, because there was a big push to try to standardize equipment. The one that's always talked about are the air apparatus, to make sure that if I'm with one department and I go to your call and I run out of air and I don't have another tank, I need to be able to get somebody else's, and they need to be compatible. So that was one that was, I know that that's kind of the easy example to give so that it's understandable that, I would want to make sure I had the oxygen if I'm running into something. So that would be helpful for them. And then, I could be wrong, when your building was built, did the county help with that building?
It's my understanding, I believe they provided a no-interest loan. I'm not really
It
sure.
was, do you remember on that, or can you get that? Sorry.
They did.
We can bring up our finance director.
Sorry. Yes, we did, and we currently have one with Midland too, non-interest bearing.
Okay, so the
loan.
county helped with a non-interest, a zero-interest loan.
Zero-interest loan.
And
for the-
they've paid off that loan back
Yes.
to the county. And
That's correct.
Midland
Midland currently
has
probably have
one.
about maybe 5, 6 years left on theirs.
Okay.
Not very.
Thank you. Again, that was information that you guys might not have known about, so.
Any other questions? We appreciate you being with us tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ted.
I think that concludes all of our fire department presentations. So the last item on our agenda is general discussion as needed. Did you have things to share, Mr. Downs?
I think we've been, you had made some requests for some information from the first meeting. We've been distributing that to you electronically. Hopefully you're getting that. We've got some requests from tonight. We'll be moving that on to you as well. So this is the time, you've had two meetings. So this is pretty much the presentation, other than we'll come back to you Monday with some capital priorities that we feel would be the priorities for you on your unallocated money. But any questions, concerns? Did we not give you some information, or would you like more information? Is there anything that you heard tonight that caused you, or the first night as well, that causes you problems that you would like us to go back and revisit, or look for a different recommendation? And
I
then, go ahead.
No, I didn't want to.
No, and there are some, if you want to give us some feedback, there have been some additional requests tonight in funding, and, we had some from the farm. Of course, the fire departments have had their taxing request, and then also some additional funding requests in addition to their tax rate. So we can talk a little bit about those, or we can talk about those at the end of your work session after you've had some time to digest it a little bit.
For me, as far as the volunteer fire department request tonight, I would rather talk about that Monday and give me enough time to read over it, and hopefully they can get the fire study. And if there are any areas in that you would want to put, look at section whatever, that based on the conversations tonight, that might help, because it's like this big. So you don't want to have to read, Lynn really, he's got loads of time to read, so, because he keeps reminding us about all his reading, but it might help if you have some reference on it. I couldn't tell you which the sections are, but anyway, the one thing that I would like for us to think about for Monday is we dedicated the Vietnam Veterans Park, and during some of those conversations, I know that they would like to have a spot, if you will, at the park for, I'm going to say the reflection. So one of the things that we've talked about a number of things there, but one of the things we talked about were some flagpoles and some benches, so that there would be an area that we could, and I do not remember the number of flagpoles, so I'm hoping that Jonathan or someone has some notes from then. Maybe Megan has something from all of her interaction with them, but the U.S. flag, North Carolina flag, the POW MIA flag, I don't know which ones, but could we at least contemplate that we would do something up there and kind of get started?
Sure.
And then
The flags, we have flags there at the entrance to the park. Are they thinking at this location, this spot of reflection, additional flags? Is that what flags?
there were some, do you know, did they say anything to you
I
yet?
know Londa's talked to them. I think we're talking about putting them all in the same place, but we'd be glad to have a discussion with them about maybe two different locations. One of the things I mentioned to Commissioner Poole was the possibility of lighting the flags too, so they could be flown 24 hours. And we've had Richard Stansel with our building maintenance has done some work looking at that, and so we'll meet out there and get you some suggestions and some costs.
And the suggestion was to have a couple benches in an area that they could sit, a longer range, not in this budget, but there were some talk about, some type of a monument that would list county residents and, from the Vietnam War. Yeah, I'm not real certain what all that is, but I think Londa knows more than I do, but I do think we had a very good ceremony downtown recently with them, and if we're going to do something out there, it's a whole lot easier to afford it if we do it in little chunks than to try to do something massive. And I don't think they want anything massive, but I do think they would like to have a spot there when they visit that they could sit in the benches, and Jonathan and Londa know what I mean. But I know you were going to bring us some suggestions, and I'd like for that to be included, because I think that's a very minor project that we could do without any difficulty.
Any other comments or questions? I hope it rains this weekend, because we have lots of homework to do, about 4 books full. Well, we want to make sure you stay on your toes. If there is no more discussion, Megan, do we adjourn or recess? Either we like. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you.